and I believe that some meaningful discourse will happen. I was just talking with Professor Ghosh when we were sitting and having a chat, that how we are going to use this time and ensure that it will not be bored. Now we decided, and the kind permission of the entire panel, the way I have thought about it, after my initial introduction, everybody speak for about 5-6 minutes about the major problems that they are looking at, the disaster risk reduction and climate change. And once that is done, then we go to this next round. What is the solution? So, because problems are not necessarily standalone, problems are linked, and so are the solutions. So, if we kind of discuss and discourse and dissect the problems on the outset, and then we can go to the solution part, there will be some overlapping, definitely. But broadly, if we can find it out, then I think after 1.5 hour discourse, we have some meaningful kind of position. Vijay Saab is here just talking about the local thing. Let me tell you, sir, that I'm not going to divulge right now, but very shortly, Kolkata's climate action plan will be launched. Very, very short. And I can't divulge more than that here, but I think it was long due. Sometimes in last October, Kolkata's mayor has launched the anti-fossil fuel thing. So that was part, some of us were part of that. And now Kolkata's climate action plan has been talked about. I think that is going to happen shortly. Anyway, now just to make an introduction, when I was sitting there and looking at the big backdrop and with the word youth, my mind travels back to Sundarbans. I think we can't avoid it. Whenever we talk about disaster and climate change in West Bengal, Sundarban will come back and back again. And I was mentoring basically a dialogue. Vishen was saying that dialogue should start. I think very important. Now this dialogue, I was mentoring a very interesting program in 15 most climatically vulnerable, disaster-prone areas of Sundarbans. It was in Sagar block, it was in Pathar Pratima block, it was in Moshoni village and island, it was in Ghodamara. So the most impacted areas. Some of us, Professor Ghosh more, we less, often travel there. Now, my job was to talk with the students and panchayat and local clubs. Because I understand if they can't be taken together, if the so-called adult youth can't be taken together, we can't go beyond the point. And we were talking. So I was just talking. Initially, there was just like a normal classroom lecture, some PowerPoint presentation. Then I find that they feel disconnected. They are hearing everything with a blank face. And then I said, let's stop this and let's start. Then I just go and sit with them and start talking. What the last time the disaster happened in your area, what did you do? How many of you had gone to the flood shelter or some other places? Almost 95% hand went up. And as you started talking, the young boys and girls, they came into tears. A girl was saying how her grandmother, about 80 years old, had to get into a tree to save herself. So amazing stories. Days after days, they were in the flood shelter. So these people are hardly 100 kilometers away from here, and virtually have done nothing to be affected like that. They have contributed nothing to the carbon cauldron of this world, but they are the most affected people. And we are the people who are part of the problem, not the solution, because we are creating the problem. So solution has to be found by us. So these young girls and boys in Sundarban, you will find in other parts of the state are similarly being affected. And I personally believe climate change is one issue where there should not be any politics. I think every political party should come together to counter this trend. I had the opportunity, I was hearing my introduction there, it's, what should I say, that my introduction, it's my fault. Somewhere down the line, this introduction isn't made. So whenever I go to any program, I just get on hearing the same thing. But let me tell you, that's a 5 years old introduction. So the world has grown, we all have grown, we all gone ahead with that. Now, the point is, I have been part of the global climate discourse from 2009, from Copenhagen summit to last Sharm el Sheikh summit. I was part of each and every summit. And I saw in front of my eyes how the whole discourse has taken, how the whole issue has been going to the different level, how the new agendas have come up. Now, the youth has become a major game changer in the last few years. Since Greta Thunberg came into the scene, and I was part of those two historic movements, historic what should I say, one in Madrid and one in Glasgow, where millions walked through. Even the Madrid people were saying that we have seen several long kind of processions when Real Madrid used to win tournaments, but never seen that. And in that kind of that discourse, I found 90 years old lady from Norway with a hoarding. I am almost 90. I am coming all the way from Norway in bicycle just to add with Greta Thunberg. I have no intention to go to the climate conference. I am here just to support Greta Thunberg. Amazing. I found people coming from distant areas with 8-9 months child in the lap. So that's the kind of feeling, because the world is going away from us and we have no planet B. We have to live in this world. We have to find a solution right out here. We can't say that, okay, let us go. We can't say that. So that's the kind of situation, and youth has turned it around. Greta Thunberg, there are various issues, but unfortunately, that Greta Thunberg, the way she had catapulted the movement, the Friday for Future movement in Europe and other places, not having happened in India right now. So it has to be happening. Definitely, it's coming up. I just will start with few pointers for the panel to kind of discourse on. First is, recently, you all know, or most know, that G7 event has happened with our Honorable Prime Minister was there. And now that G7 event has accepted that poor are the most affected for climate change. Now, this is not truer than anywhere else in this world, in the country like India, in state like West Bengal, in a city like KOLKATA, where 35% people live in slums. So what we are thinking about that? When we are talking about climate change, our discourse is middle class oriented. Our discourse is predominantly upper class oriented. What we are thinking about that? So DRR, disaster risk reduction, is a multi-layered thing, and ecosystem-based approach has to be taken. So that's one pointer for my very honorable and fellow panelists, that how we can take forward that, the DRR as a multi-layered and ecosystem-based approach. Now, coming back to Sundarban again, I'm quoting from a World Bank report which says that in Sundarban, it's 2-3 years back report, 24, Dr. Ghosh can update on that, 24% area are critically affected, 36% moderately affected, and 40% less affected. So that opens up another question. Entire Sundarban is not that vulnerable. Within Sundarban, I think 1,000 plus villages, about 25% is extremely vulnerable. So how should we prioritize our action on disaster risk reduction in Sundarban? That is another point. Third is that mangrove. Yes, mangrove has to play a very important role. Now, Government of West Bengal has decided about planting crores of mangrove. Now, that is a major project. Now, Government of India has come up with this project called Mishti. It sounds Mishti. It's about mangrove installation. That is also can happen in Sundarban. But the point is, mangrove is very important. But those of us who work on Sundarban know that even in islands where anthropogenic impact is not there, that is also being eroded. So erosion is happening. So mangrove alone cannot solve it. Mangrove has to play a very important role, but there has to be an engineering solution as well. Now, Isla embankment, which came after the Isla happened, is found to be a very good option because Isla has not been breached. Isla bank has not been breached. It's been toppled over some time, but not being breached. So how we can think about, Professor Ghosh, taking the ecologically based solution along with that kind of engineering solution. What is the marriage of ecology and engineering here? I think we have engineer out here, we have ecologists here. That's a great platform to talk about it. Then third is apart from mangrove, another major issue is lack of enough fresh water. that the water has been turning saline. So fresh water from upstream is not coming. So how to go about it? If the fresh water is not coming, enough silt is not coming, I think the delta building is being affected. So Sundarban is being eroding by itself because of lack of siltation. What to do about it? How we can go about it? That is another point. Next is, we often talk about the big departments, central government, state government, but to me the most important is the panchayats, who are right there, being fighting with the climate change in whatever way with minimum capacity. How we can upgrade the panchayats, their capacity to counter that, if we can address this issue. Then another very important point which I would like to raise out here, how we can link the Sendai framework with Sundarban. Sendai framework, those of you don't know about it, Sendai framework is an international framework from till 2030, which is supposed to significantly reduce disaster risk in various areas. And they have 4 components: understanding disaster risk, then strengthening DRR governance, investment in disaster risk reduction, and enhancing disaster preparedness. How we can utilize that in context of Sundarban in particular and West Bengal in general? That's my question. And we, in fact, day before yesterday, the meeting I was part of in World Bank, Honorable Environment Minister of India was there, Bhupendra Yadavji. And Bhupendra Yadavji saying that how the mangrove can be utilized more. Now, we often say that mangroves are very important. They are giving a lot of ecological services. So it is a crime to cut it out. Yes, I do agree with that. But the person who is not getting 2 square mills sitting in Sundarban, and if he cut a mangrove and get some money from it, how we will stop that? It's illegal. But life is bigger than legality. So how to go about it? So he will not only cut when he will be knowing that not cutting the mangrove will give him more dividends than by cutting. So can we transfer part of this ecological services being given by the mangroves to the people at large? I myself have seen in areas like Cambodia, in Vietnam, how mangrove-based industries have come up. Can we think about smaller mangrove-based industries? Can we think about the kind of money being shifted to a certain group? Now this new Biodiversity Act is coming up. This new Biodiversity Act has a lot of option for access sharing and this kind of thing. So can we think about that? That is very important. So I think let us stop right now. I think a lot of points being made. I just would like to start with the kind of sequence that we have, starting from Professor Ghosh and then to Dr. Bera, then Mr. Gupta and Dr. Mandal, Mr. Tudu, Dr. Maiti, basically not necessarily being kind of limited to the points I made, but broad. What's your thought about the main problems of disaster risk management and how we go about it? Let's start with Dr. Ghosh. May I request all to be limited within about 7-8 minutes, and then we can go to the second round. Over to Dr. Ghosh.
Thank you very much. I think that was a very nice introduction, and the students, especially, I can see a lot of students here, and they are eager to hear from us. But most of the things, the talking points already mentioned by Mr. Basu, Jayanta Basu. So we have really limited scope to talk about all these things. But one thing I should mention, that as I'm working in Sundarban specially, besides other deltas and other areas, most of the time I am very much intended towards Sundarban. So please pardon me for that issue. One thing is that whenever we talk about climate change, there are a lot of definitions. UNFCCC, they have some kind of definition. IPCC, they have some kind of definition. But whatever the definition is there and the variation is there within the definitions, the fate is similar, and we are experiencing that. And I can recall my fight with white-dominated report preparation during my IPCC involvement. And I told them that I can see all these things, what you are discussing through your models. So why don't you incorporate all these ground level issues, and why don't you consider the importance of those? And there was a big fight, maybe 30-40% success I could get, not much really, because there is a real kind of discussion, debate is going on that all the global reports are basically white dominated, if I'm right. So that is also going on. And these definitions are here and there. There are a lot of conflicts between the definitions, a lot of conflicts between the approach. So climate change, if we call climate change, maybe not your generation. Our generation started in our mother language, Bangla. Six means choy. That is choy ritu, one season. 6 seasons. We started with that in our childhood. Can you recognize 6 seasons in a year now? You cannot really. I cannot. So that was wrong. Probably not. That was there at that time. So very simplistic way, if we think about all these things, not really putting ourselves within the jargons of climate change and all these new issues and all these G7, G20 and all COP and all these things. Just think simpler way, what are the things happening? And if we think about the temperature, so there is a place, you know very well, Ranchi. 25, 30 years ago, nobody thought about even the ceiling fan in Ranchi. Now you go visit, air condition is there. Okay, so temperature is changing. Kolkata is the highest rate of change, increasing temperature now, according to IPCC. So it's there. So we are facing, we are experiencing. So from our experience, not from IPCC, not from other forums, we can experience that climate is changing. And besides the sea level rise and all other things, we can also experience the change in the rainfall pattern that is happening. If you talk, like Mr. Basu was mentioning, if you talk to any person there in Sundarban or any other area, they will talk about the rainfall pattern, change in the rainfall pattern and all these things. And they will say you that there is heavy rainfall within a shorter time. We are not equipped with that, like that. This is happening, okay. And climate change practitioners and DRR, disaster risk reduction, I think the approach is different, maybe. But we are actually trying to solve the common issue. Climate change is influencing the DRR issue, and now, today, in the globe, if you see, 67,000 people die every year due to natural hazards. And people are blaming that all these frequency of natural hazards or severity of the natural hazards are due to climate change. And if you go back, why climate change? We have done that. So we have to blame, not to blame the climate change. We need to blame us. Okay. And whatever we have done, that is the result of all these things. So we need to work hard to change the result. We need to improve ourselves. That should be the approach. And there are something, say, again I'm going back to Sundarban, there is some kind of elevated housing in the Sundarban. And if you go to Goshala, you will find the Hamilton bungalow. Before 100 years back, he thought about the elevated housing. So we are now thinking, okay, that's fine, no problem. And whenever there is some kind of elevated housing, the climate practitioners, they say that this is a kind of adaptation. This is a very good adaptation. But the DRR practitioners, they will say that this is resilience building. So the approach is different, but the result is same. So we are fighting each other. Some are DRR practitioners strongly, some are climate practitioners strongly. Okay. But we need to combine climate change and disaster risk reduction things. And that's why there was some kind of concept came up, climate smart disaster risk management, CSDR. That is also coming up. And that is happening. Now we are concerned, and that's why this forum, climate change and disaster risk reduction combined within this dialogue. And that is a very good effort, I think. And that is timely effort. Another thing is that Mr. Basu was mentioning, say for Sundarban, you can just for example, there are a lot of things that mangroves, embankment, water, rivers. But whenever we are thinking about some region, say Sundarban, we often forget the river. And Ganga, the river Ganges, and finally Hooghly, that actually created the delta. But we are talking about the delta, we are not talking about the river. River has lost its flow, sediment carrying capacity, and that's why the sediment discharge is not coming to the Bay of Bengal, and that's why the delta is starving from sedimentation. That is a true thing, real thing. But we are always blaming climate change and sea level rise for the destruction of the delta. So we need to blame us. We have killed the rivers rampantly after independence. We did not criticize us. That is not fair enough. We are talking about embankment. And whenever we are talking about embankment breaching, we are going back, retreat and retreat and retreat. But you have gone to Diva. We could build a seawall on the sea, on the face of the sea. Okay, we could build that. We have that kind of technology. But we cannot build some embankment towards the river. We are always going back. Why? We have enough technology, but we are not going to use that. So there is a problem of mindset and problem that we want to stick with the traditional practices, routine practices. We do not innovate, we do not think outside the box. That's another problem. So this might be another issue, but Dr. Basu already mentioned. The issue is that the problem of mindset and sticking to the traditional practices. We need to come out of that. Innovation is needed, much needed. So intervention, interference, and innovation, these are needed. These are must. Talking about the mangroves, the Sundarban is full of mangroves and they were not planted. That naturally grow. Now we are talking about mangroves, 20 crores, 30 crores, all these things. There are government scheme, Mishti scheme is there through the Engineering and all these schemes. They are tied up. But why the people from KOLKATA is rushing towards Sundarban to plant mangrove? We never thought about that. Earlier time they didn't go. The Sundarban people used to plant. Now they are going because there are a lot of fun. Sundarban people are capable enough to plant mangroves. But people from Kolkata, different organizations, they are rushing towards Sundarban to plant mangroves. Why? We need to think about that. I'm not going to criticize anything, but we need to think about that. And for the students especially, I should say that whenever we are talking about something, you try to verify that. Don't believe us. Because we, so-called scientists, social scientists, activists, we try to do something, but those are not always right. You should criticize us. Otherwise, we cannot go forward. And from the issue, we don't want to try to panic people. Because there are some panic that the entire Bangladesh Sundarban will be disappear within 30 years. We have published something before around 2017 or 18 from our analysis, SLAM and other inundation model. We have done that with field trips, ground verification, and we found that 13 to 70% change may happen, not more than that. So need not to panic. And we have to come up with some solutions. We should not say that these are the issues happening. Must come up with some solutions. And especially for me, I can tell you, all my dear students, that from the research mode, I am trying to shift towards action research. So I don't believe that without solution, any research can come up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh, for very important initial pointers. And I think it's very important, the last point you made, that academicians or the researchers, somewhere down the line, has to turn, especially in climate change, I think we need to think out of the box. We need to think immediately and act immediately. রবীন্দ্রনাথ একটা কথা বলেছিলেন যে নতুন সময় নতুন কাজ চায়। সুতরাং একইভাবে ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জকে কাউন্টার করতে গেলে you might have seen the recent report of WMO, World Meteorological Organization, saying that 1.5 degree will be reached anytime. It may be tomorrow, within 5 years, latest by this decade end, 2029, any year 1.5 degree centigrade rise will be reached. Already we have reached 1.2. তাতেই কি অবস্থা, the scenario is very clear to all of us. So if it is 1.5, it will be complete mayhem. In fact, the IPCC latest report, which is called AR6 report, Assessment Report 6, it has 3 parts: Working Group 1, Working Group 2, and Working Group 3. In Working Group 1, there's an interactive map. We have decoded that map and found that areas, not only in Sundarban, into South Bengal, and when we are saying Sundarban, you might have been saying, thinking, why these people are only talking about Sundarban? Simply because Sundarban is the most important core in the will. If Sundarban goes, entire South Bengal will be lost, almost in a major way. So in that report, it is saying that this temperature in KOLKATA, in the South Bengal cities, will be around 49-50 degrees centigrade. Ajgir Rajasthan, Kalke Kolkata. And the temperature rise in Darjeeling will be more than the temperature rise. I'm saying rise, not the absolute temperature. Don't get me wrong. The temperature rise in Darjeeling will be higher than the temperature rise in Delhi. So that sort of prediction coming from the Working Group 1 report. So very important to go from, Professor goes from research mode to action research mode. It's happening all over the world, and it's great to see that you've been traveling the same line. Let me go to Dr. Aparna Bera, climate change practitioner, South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development. Madam, for your comments.
Thank you, sir. There is tremendous interesting and brainstorming. Actually, in real sense, brainstorming sessions is going on, and sitting beside the pioneering academic legend, I would say. From my work experience, I only add up something, continuing with sir's so much insightful views. So, from my work experience on climate-induced migration in Sagar Island, I have gathered that the aggregated vulnerability in this kind of some coastal deltaic islands of Sundarban is of some other levels, because we have everything on board. We have subsidence, we have induced sea level rise, we have in consecutive 3, almost 4 severe cyclones in past 3 years, and we have also the percent change in land area, almost about minus 11.33 in from 2009 to 19, as per my research, and so it is there are widespread depletion of land, livelihood, and natural resource, and there is no doubt in it. So I think there's a lot of inherent challenges and gaps that must be resolved by more administrative efforts, institutional strengthening, and ecosystem-based financing models to integrate and mainstream. We have to mainstream the livelihood development, both in terms of policymaking, implication, and changing the ground realities itself through more and more active community participation. And community participation is a very common term we used. We almost finished at using this term, but we are in a verge of merging these two different terms: climate risk reduction and DRR, Uh, so far, these two topics was discussed in silos so far, but from now on, we are just making it all together to co-benefit from the climate mitigation, adaptation, and build the resilience itself because we are running out of time. The time we are taking to accumulate the effort to build the resilience and the adverse climate intensifications is going on rapidly faster than that. So I would talk about there are more scopes of climate governance and financing the resilience. When we, as a country, we are progressing towards sustaining green energy and uh, climate and carbon, I would say carbon indifferent. This kind of economy, and there was the India presidented the G20, and there was the main theme was sustainable and resilience economy. So, coming all together, these chapters, these major factors, we could more and more focus on financing the resilience because at this cross section, we do not actually finding the value, the benefit of financing the resilience because in developing countries like ours, a single disaster can cost up to 3 to 6% of GDP. And so if we now finance, and there are always a cost benefit approach like the corporate sectors, we also all the time expecting from public participation from public sectors and government to come up front. But there are intense scopes of private NGOs and even uh, individual efforts. So to actually achieve the integrated and ecosystem resolution, ecosystem provisioning solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Important point we made. We'll carry on the discussion. Let me go over to Mr. Naveen Gupta, co-founder Erosia Water and Hydro Limited. The floor is yours, Mr. Gupta. Mr. Naveen Gupta is here? No, not here. Oh, then Dr. Kunal Mandal. Yeah. Dr. Kunal Mandal, CEO, Y20 Green Tech Solution Private Limited.
Thank you, Bangla. Language Bangla is English.
Yeah,
Oh, all right, all right. First of all, it's an honor to sit in the dais with so many different people from different backgrounds, academics, researchers, social workers, journalists, as well as engineers and others among us. Also, it's an honor for me to share the stage with a professor from my university. I'm glad that that opportunity has come up in my life. In terms of the problems that we were discussing, few things. Let's begin with a few things that are happening around us. Right? A lot of people all the time ask me that how does really climate change affect my life or anyone's life for that matter? Because the practices that we adopt of daily life, that's going to once compounded over many years, that's how it's going to help us mitigate the climate change. So a few things, let's look recent events. Right? So for example, volcanic eruptions that are happening. For example, Mount Etna, as Europe's one of the most active volcanoes, erupted again in northern Italy. How does that affect? We're talking about disaster risk. This is what disaster risk look like. An entire region in northern Italy, people have to be moved from there to somewhere else. Their livelihood is disrupted, their living conditions is disrupted, and it adds up to the cost for the city to rebuild that infrastructure. One story. Second, let's look at economic conditions, how it gets affected by climate change. We all know, unfortunately, there's a war going on in the world, that is Russia and Ukraine. Now, last year, when this war, was at its peak, the focus for Ukraine was on war and not on agriculture. Because of that, there was a shortage of wheat. Now, India luckily anticipated that, and we wanted to get some foreign exchange by providing that wheat, surplus wheat that we can have. Unfortunately, we saw some series of heat waves that kind of created such a scenario for a country like us, which is generally wheat surplus. We had to put a ban on export of that wheat. So forget the export and the forex that the country could earn. Our internal prices were rising. All of us know that atat dam bedhe geche, right? It's a regular affair. That's how our household every day gets affected. Now let's look at some problems that are closer to home. Sundarban has already been talked about. Incidentally, my ancestral hometown is Sundarban. I belong to a village. Majority of my family still stay there, including my grandfather and grandmother and a few of my uncles. Now, apart from Sundarban, let's look at the very city that we all love and we live in, Calcutta. It produces a huge amount of waste. If I'm not wrong, about 5,000 tons of waste are produced in Calcutta almost on a daily basis. Now, there is an organic component of that waste, organic fraction, what we typically call in language, but you can think of it as waste যেটা সবজি মান্ডি থেকে আসে অথবা kitchen waste that has been collected and things like that. Now that perennially, সাধারণভাবে, has been handled in a standard centralized manner. You pick up the waste, sub collect hoy, and it goes to the landfill. The landfill is located in one particular corner of the city. In some cases, there could be more landfills. So there are more corners where you basically go and dump it and then forget about it. কি হচ্ছে কেন হচ্ছে জানি না, আমার বাড়ি থেকে ওয়েস্ট নিয়ে চলে যাচ্ছে, আমার আর মাথা ব্যথা নেই। Now, that waste over time does two things. It generates what we typically call carbon emission or GHG emission or methane, right? That gets added to the environment, that is heating up the planet. Second thing that it does, over time, it creates leachate leakage. So what happens is it goes down. There's over time when it starts decomposing, there are materials that goes down and contaminates the groundwater that is there. সাধারণভাবে দক্ষিণেশ্বর যাওয়ার পথে you will see there is it's sometimes cordoned off. They put hoardings and some kind of barriers so that, but the smell is still, unavoidable. ওখানে যাওয়ার সময় যেটা দেখবে যে ওখানকার গ্রাউন্ড ওয়াটার ধীরে 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 কন্টামিনেট হতে শুরু করছে। দ্যাট মিনস আশেপাশের যারা লোক ধীরে ধীরে ওই পানীয় জল পাচ্ছে, which typically was fresh water, is now not going to be fresh anymore. So these are some serious problems that happens in the surrounding that we live in, and all of our lives get affected because of events that are happening not only here but also in other parts of the world. Apart from these three, the last one that I'm going to talk about is basically use of fossil fuel or energy that we currently burn. আমরা সবাই জানি এসি আমরা বাড়িতে ইউজ করি, we have cars that run on petrol and diesel. Now all of these comes from fossil fuel. Now that's just the daily consumption of things around us. But there are other things that we consume that we don't understand directly. For example, industrial products that come. So steel, oil that are produced, in that this plays an important role because molecules is what runs the world. not electrons. What I mean by that is electricity is not what's taking it forward. That electricity produces a particular compound, and that molecule reacts with that steel making process where they eliminate the oxygen, and then you get the steel which you use. So in that scenario, question now for us is how do we start eliminating that molecule and bring more greener molecule into the ecosystem so that our consumption pattern changes to a greener source. So these are some pointers at the moment for all of you to think about, that how different events in different parts of the world, in your city, in your household, affects your life, and then think about that climate change that you did not care about. Thank you.
Thank you. I think very important point. We need to look at our backyard, what we are doing, and in front here as well, which we are showing there right away. So, but I also think that these are not basically standalone human behavior. I think we need a system around us to ensure that we don't do that. When you feel that, see that everybody is doing it, you feel like you also do that. So government, and there where the government comes into the picture. Government has to create a system which will facilitate that I don't throw in my front yard or backyard. What is the mechanism? And I think, I very strongly think that unless market is being linked to this whole process, as I said, like giving back to the people of Sundarban. Similarly, in this kind of waste management as well. Why can't we? Why can't we have so many clubs? We are supporting the club. Why can't we create a world-based system of self-help group who will collect the plastics and all those kind of waste? These are the hard waste, so to say, and then get it kind of resale to the plastic who have been working with the plastic. So this can be created. Maybe somewhere down the line this needs to be thought. A good thing has happened in Kolkata. Construction and demolition waste recycling has and center has been created. I think one of the first in the country. But I think we need to do a lot more. A city which is creating, I think, how much? 5,000 tons almost. 5,000 tons waste every day. 5,000 tons waste every day we are creating, and we have no space to keep it. The new act mandates that you can't keep it in the Ramsar site in Dhapa, and we have to find out such output places. So I think waste is a very big issue and needs to be considered. Especially, we haven't talked about methane. I think methane is a major role to play. So waste is a major role to play. So very important. Thank you for flagging off the issue of waste into the context. Now let me go to Mr. Praveen Tudu. Praveen Tudu is a fellow of Environmental Science Department, University of Calcutta. Oh, under Punarbushu? Yes, sir. Oh, got it. Yes. Floor is yours.
It's my pleasure that I'm in such a reputative panel. So basically, you can say that I'm the only person who can represent the youth in this panel. So,
We all represent you. You all seem very young.
thank you, sir.
But youth comes from your mind,
Yes.
not in your physical age.
So, as before, Dr. Ghosh has said that once Ranchi was like very, you can say that it was a hill station, and I can say that I have spent 20 years there in Ranchi, and I know that what it is and how that has changed. And basically, as I was introduced that I'm working on air pollution, but I can say that even sir said that there are some places in Kolkata or nearby the Kolkata where we dump all the particles. Sir, I'm working on that part also because my team is also working on that part. And as you can say that even the East Kolkata wetland is there. It is a Ramsar site. So my boss, as you know, Dr. Punar Vasu sir, is also working to like restore some part of it to preserve that part also. So and my senior, who was like leading researcher in mangrove migration. So basically, the thing is that what they are saying that in Sundarban areas there are some particular species of mangroves there that are like migrating towards the upper regions of the Gangetic Plain. So, yes, sir, there are so many problems due to climate change, and I hope that using our research abilities, we can at least restore some part of it. And apart from in my sector, like air pollution, so yeah, there are so many things that can be done. Uh, my work as a fellow is to find out the hotspots in Kolkata areas where we have to install the purifiers. Basically, that is a small instrument that like suck out the air, polluted air, and at least to some extent it will reduce the pollution point. So basically, I have been given that job to find out the hotspots in different localities that there where we can at least install that part. So, sir, I'm working on ground level, so basically I'll do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Very important point. In fact, this purifier thing has, made a lot of debates and a lot of issues are there, and we can discuss this afterwards. But this issue of using purifiers, how much it goes on to impact the overall air quality, that is something to be debated upon, not only here, but globally as well. But I'm thankful to you for raising a particular question about air pollution. Because the relationship of air pollution and climate change has been a new one. I think few years back, 4 or 5 years even back, it was thought that higher air pollution means higher particulate level and less sunlight can come through. So air pollution gives you a cooler effect. So basically, it means that a city or an area which is highly polluted is less impacted by the climate change in that way. But 5, 6 years back, I can still remember it was, I think, in Durban, not even more than that, Durban Climate Conference. First time, I think, Yale University did a program that is very interesting, which showed that within the particulates, there are particulates which takes carbon. So the carbon particulate, carbon brings the heat, so they contribute to the heat. So there are particulates which are not contributing, and there are particles which are contributing. So there must be some students from environmental science, or likewise in this room. This is a completely new area of work, the work of air pollution and climate change. In fact, I think Professor Ghosh and Dr. Maiti and Professor Maiti all will agree that the time is up when we consider climate change standalone. It was a climate change part of the game. It's not the game in itself. I agree with him that there are other issues which need to be considered. So thankfully you have raised this issue of air pollution. I think it should be debated and it should be taken forward. Now let me go forward to Professor Maiti from IIT Kharagpur, working in this sector, and really keen to hear him. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. So, overall, first of all, I'd like to thank Chairperson, Mr. Sujit Raichaudhary, for inviting me. And today, I'm very happy. I'm very happy, not for that they invited me and I got a chance to talk here. That I'm really thankful to them, no doubt in that. But my happiness is coming from a different angle. That is what I want to clarify for this 5-6 minutes talk. I was just listening very carefully from all of them. Sir is also here. I heard his name, though I have not met you earlier personally, but I know him very well. So when I was listening to all of them, and you know that I am also a professor from IIT Kharagpur, when I go to a class, I start talking. And the topic that we are talking today is that climate change and disaster risk reduction. We can take a class for throughout the semester. And whatever my previous speakers has told, I can also spend another 10 minutes time, and almost the message that will communicate to you are almost the same. Let me start with a small story from a different perspective that I heard long back, early 2000. The story is like this. I was attending one lecture long back when the climate change was a debate, even that time, whether it is really changing or not. So the talk was started like this. There was a big screen on the background. Speaker is talking, and in the image, there was a river flowing. On the river, there is a boat, and on the boat, there is one person sitting. And we can see, we can guess from the image that in front of the image, after some distance, there is one waterfall. So it can happen like this, that boat will come, it will face that waterfall, it will fall down. And the professor was explaining, this is what is our situation now, this is what is the climate change. So we are very surprised. So three things he told. The first thing is that the problem is that we don't know how far we are from that waterfall. So how long will it take to reach to the real disaster? The second thing that we don't know is that how deep is that waterfall. So how much disaster is really going to happen, that also we don't know. And there was a third point which was most critical. He mentioned that we don't know who is there sitting in that boat. So that last point was very, very goosebumping for me, that what is that? Because every one of us there on that boat, if you are explaining this one to the climate change. And he explained no. There are some people is going to face the disaster most. And my dear friends, my dear young friends, unfortunately, the most affected people are not the creator of the problem. So from that point onwards, we have to think from a social point of view. Even if I can put this AC of this room a little bit more cooler, and I can feel that this is much better than what I feel outside, but believe me or not, that is not going to solve the issue. I will just take you to a little bit towards the academic side also and come to this solution. As Mr. Vasu very rightly told, we always talk about the problem but not think about the solution out of it. Basically, there are, because that will lead me to that why I'm happy little bit today I will explain. There are three major things are there through which we realize that something is changing. These three major things are some of the things we already know, and some of the things we know but we sometimes overlook it, still because those are not created the problem so far that much. First one is the global warming. Global warming we all know, and you know that we are talking about the 1.5 degree centigrade rise, and we, believe me or not, the remote people has no idea what is the problem in 1.5 degree. In the morning 8 a.m. I am facing a temperature of 24 degree, in that it goes up to 42. So what is the problem in if it goes even 1.5 degree extra? But the happy point is that as of now, even if the big leaders in the world, they are criticizing in a way when there is a cold storm, they are saying, where is your global warming? That kind of sarcastic way they criticize the thing. But by and large, our society knows what is the big problem in it. Second manifestation of the climate change is the extreme events. And these extreme events, the first thing that comes to our mind is the cyclones and those things, and number of cyclones are increased and all, but there are many other extreme events are there, like floods, droughts, and most important now in this current time that we have to think, and it is going to be a very big issue in the near future in another 1 or 2 years, is called the compound extreme. The compound extreme means the extremes occurs not only in a single event. There are two or more than two events are occurring together or in a succession of one another. Say for example, the heavy rainfall, immediately after that there is heat waves. So over the time scale, both the things when it occurs in simultaneously or in succession, they cause even more disaster as compared to their individual occurrence. So the extremes when we are talking about, this is the second thing, that is we are talking about the manifestation of climate change. And third thing is sea level rise. They have talked many things about the Sundarban and the sea level rise. When we talk about, even few years back, people are saying, what is the problem? If I ask my very young friends, The sea level rise, if you search all the literature, they will say, okay, fine, in this much, the sea level will rise 200 mm, 300 mm per year, 3.6 mm per year. Then I think, what is the problem? Every tidal effect that comes few meters, it goes up and goes down. So if it is added by 200 200 millimeter more, what is the issue in that? The problem is that, suppose that Ayla came in 2009. If the same storm comes in 2023, my dear friends, the extent of the inundation, the devastation, that will be even more. It's just like called the brooming effect, you know. In this floor itself, if we see that there may not we see that much of dirt or this thing, you start brooming it, take it to the corner of the room, you will see that how much dirt it was there. That is called the brooming effect. So the thing is that if there is a small rise of the sea level also, and the cyclone comes, the storm surge and that inundation, that will be huge into the amount. And they were telling that we need to construct some seawall, protection wall in the coastal part. Our problem or issue is that when we do that one, we see what is happening and then we start constructing there. But is it sustainable over a longer time? Whenever we talk about the climate change, remember that even the school boys knows nowadays there is a difference between the weather and climate. The instantaneous changes, instantaneous status that we see, that is weather, and climate means it is really long term. Long term means almost 30 to 35 years. There is another third term is also there, that is called climate variability. And this climate variability is longer than the weather change and shorter than this, and maybe in that decadal scale or so. So these three things we have to keep in our mind. Whenever we are going for some protection work and all, if we are really considering the climate issues in the mind, then we have to see what is going to happen in 50 years in front, and then we have to take some kind of issues. In my opinion, at this stage, there are some success stories are also there. For example, long back when I was a child, there was a joke. I'm just joking. You don't take it anything as a personal thing. Whenever there is an announcement that today evening there can be a rain, people are saying no. Then today definitely there won't be any rain. And if they say today it can be rain, then we say that okay, fine. Then but that kind of things has gone now. We are improving, and it cannot be blamed directly if we see a little bit the scientific point of view. But now, what happens, I think many people, those who are senior, recall that 1999, the super cyclone that came, that time even the cyclone naming was not there. How much devastation it was, how much the loss we had. But nowadays, at least, you know, that those incidents, almost all of us know even 1 week before, there is a cyclone coming. Sometimes people are taking as a relief, oh my God, there's so much of hot weather, then some cyclone is coming, some rain will come. So the thing is that, the happy point is that we have reached much, people have just started thinking that yes, there is something is changing, but in this century itself, early 2000 itself, it was very, very difficult, even for the maximum, major sector of the society itself, to convince them that yes, there is something is changing. And I am happy today simply because of that. Now almost the entire society agrees to this fact, and we have started finding the mitigation and adaptation, the solutions towards this. Coming to this point, there are 3 points that we need. Is that for the quality data, reliable models, and public awareness. You know, there are 2 things. This is my last point before I conclude. Is that we always appreciate those advanced countries. How come they give such a very precise prediction or forecasting for their thing? But remember that there are 2 things we are there. We have to first of all know that we are in a tropical region where, you know, the climate models needs to be much more sophisticated. I agree that in the high latitude zones there it is, I should say, maybe the same model that works there nicely, here it may be more challenging due to the lots of atmospheric disturbances. Number 1. Number 2 is that the data. the one of the professors, I recall very correctly, because the public needs that today evening it will rain, and I lose my trust if it doesn't rain on my rooftop. Even if it is raining just adjoining area, I don't appreciate that. Then he told I need the data in every kilometer, the resolution that you need the accurate prediction. So those advanced countries, they might have started collecting data long back. And for the country like us, we have just started thinking that one very recently. So that is the thing, we need some quality data. That data collection is a must for anything, any solution that we are targeting at. Our models, we really need that one. Very recently, there is a very good computer, supercomputer computer, those we are hearing. The National Supercomputer Mission is also is in the place. And of course, the public awareness is one of the things that we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Maiti, for flagging off very important points you made. In fact, the point you made. আচ্ছা এখানে এই ঘরে কি কেউ এমন আছেন যে বাংলা বোঝেন না একেবারে? তাহলে আর কি প্যানেলিস্ট একটু নিজের মতো করে বাংলা ইংরেজি মিলে আড্ডা মারতে পারেন সব। এতক্ষণ বিদেশি ভাষায় কথা বলতে ভালো লাগে না। Anybody is there in this room who can't understand Bengali at all? তার জন্য বললাম আর কি ইংরেজি। I'm going to kindly have to. I don't want to kind of ensure that you can't understand what we are talking about. So please put your hands up if you don't understand Bengali. Is there anybody? No. So we can have a mix. So you talked about at some point of time, যখন যদি আইএমডি বলতো যে আজকে বৃষ্টি হবে, তাহলে লোকে ছাতা নিয়ে বেরোতো না। আর বৃষ্টি হবে না বললে ছাতা নিয়ে বেরোতো। এবং
লোকে ছাতা নিয়ে বেরোতো না, এটা ঠিক না। লোকে ছাতা নিয়ে বেরোতো রোদের হাত থেকে
হ্যাঁ, তো ছাতা দু রকমই রোদ আছে। তো না, কিন্তু আমি মজার কথাটা বলি, way back, I think early 90s, I'm not naming the person of within the IMD charge at the time. We all know his name, but I'm not naming him. তো ইনফ্যাক্ট আমরা বলতাম যে চিড়িয়াখানার ডিরেক্টর আর আইএমডি ডিরেক্টর দুজন মানে জবে থেকে হয়তো অকখন করতে শিখেছি তখন থেকে একই লোক আছে, এটা মুখে ব্যাপার ছিল। Anyway, so that is nothing to criticize. It is actually talking about their potential. They have been leading those departments in such a wonderful manner. কিন্তু পয়েন্ট যেটা হচ্ছে যে মানে এখন অনেক আগে আমি তখন অনেক ইয়াঙ্গার মানে ফিজিক্যালি ইয়াঙ্গার জার্নালিস্ট, আমি তখন এত টেলিভিশন চ্যানেল ছিল না, দূরদর্শন ছিল। দূরদর্শনে খোঁজ খবর বলে একটা প্রোগ্রাম, দ্যাট ওয়াজ দ্য ফার্স্ট টক শো ইন বেঙ্গল, ফার্স্ট টক শো ইন বেঙ্গল টেলিভিশন, 1:1 টক শো হতো। তো আমার বহুদিন ধরে সেই টক শোটাকে করতে হয়েছিল। তো সেই টক শোতে উনি এসেছিলেন, তখন T20 ক্রিকেট আসে, তখন সবে ওয়ানডে ক্রিকেটটা পপুলারাইজ হচ্ছে। তো ওনাকে, ইট ওয়াজ নট আ লাইভ শো, বাট ইট ওয়াজ বিং রেকর্ডেড লাইভ, তিনটে ক্যামেরা নিয়ে লাইভ হচ্ছিল। তো ওনাকে আমি জিজ্ঞেস করলাম আপনার স্ট্রাইক রেট কত? তাই স্টার্টেড উইথ দ্যাট কোয়েশ্চেন, তো আপনার স্ট্রাইক রেট কত? স্ট্রাইক রেট মানে আপনি 10 বার বলে কভার নেবেন। তা উনি খুব গম্ভীর প্রকৃতির মানুষ ছিলেন, ওনার মতো লোকও উনি হেসে ফেললেন। Then we started discussing, and definitely it is a long way. এটা কিন্তু I completely agree with Professor Maiti. We have come a long way. এখন IMD মোচা যে তৈরি হলো, মোচা তৈরি হওয়ার জন্ম নেওয়ার 5 দিন আগে থেকে বলেছে একটা ঝড় যাবে, তারপর বলেছে কোন ডিরেকশনে যাবে। But yes, I completely agree with it. We have ample area to improve. For example, আমি মোচার কথা দিয়ে আসি। মোচা যদি আপনি, I very carefully followed up the entire মোচা আমার প্রফেশনাল কারণে লেখালেখির জন্যই। আইএমডি আজকে যেটা বলছে প্রেডিকশন 110 কোটি, সেটা শেষে গিয়ে দাঁড়িয়ে গেল 240-30। So the prediction kept on changing. মানে প্রেডিকশন আমি যখন করছি যে কততে ল্যান্ডফলের সময় কত হবে, that prediction gets on changing. So I was talking to a very senior scientist of University of Maryland and also IIT Bombay that why it is happening. He said that on Bay of Bengal certain sensors are missing. So as because the sensors are missing, it is getting difficult for IMD to really understand how the rise will happen. Because Bay of Bengal was extremely hot, 35 degrees centigrade and up at that point in time. So yes, we have come a long way, but we need to traverse longer. And আরেকটা কথা আপনি বলছিলেন যে ভালো মন্দ, আমরা এটাও মনে পড়ে যে একজন নোবেল লরিয়েট কলকাতায় এসেছিলেন, তিনি সম্ভবত বায়োকেমিস্ট্রিতে নোবেল পেয়েছিলেন, কিন্তু তিনি ক্লাইমেট নিয়ে কাজ করছিলেন। তো তখন আরো ক্লাইমেট স্কেপটিক্স বেশি ছিল। তো আমি ওনাকে জিজ্ঞাসা করলাম যে দেয়ার ইজ আ থিওরি যে সাম পিপল আর ওভারডুইং ইট, বাড়াবাড়ি করছে, ইট ইজ গেটিং বিগার এন্ড বিগার লাইক দ্যাট। তো হাউ টু গো অ্যাবাউট ইট? আপনার কি মনে হয়? উনি বললেন তোমার একটা গল্প বা তোমার একটা হাইপোথেটিক্যাল সিচুয়েশন করি। ইউ আর ইন আ প্লেন and the pilot told you that the fuel is running out. Now fuel may run out within 5 minutes or maybe 15 minutes. Should you start deliberating the 15 minute হবে না 5 minute হবে না কিন্তু বাঁচার চেষ্টা করবে? So that's the climate change is all about. Climate change is going to affect us all and affect us hard. Today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Yes, it was told before that 2030 হিমালয় করে দেবে। এখন বলছি করবে না। So definitely predictions are getting wrong. It's a modeling exercise. It can get wrong. কিন্তু একটা যে কিছু ঘটছে এবং ক্লাইমেট চেঞ্জ একটা, যেটা প্রফেসর ঘোষ বলছিলেন যে অ্যানথ্রোপোজেনিক কারণে, আমাদের কারণে এটা একটা জায়গায় পৌঁছাচ্ছে যেখান থেকে পয়েন্ট অফ নো রিটার্ন হয়ে যাচ্ছে। আপনারা যারা ইয়াঙ্গার আছো স্টুডেন্টসরা, I don't know whether you've seen it, Inconvenient Truth. Look at the film. Have you seen it? Inconvenient Truth কজন দেখেছে এখানে? হাত তোলো। Inconvenient Truth. What do you know of the climate change now? Bollywood there. No, I have nothing against that, but also see Bollywood, but also see Inconvenient Truth. Inconvenient Truth একটা সিন আছে। যে সিনটা দেখাচ্ছে যে কিভাবে কার্বন ডাই অক্সাইড বাড়ার সঙ্গে সঙ্গে টেম্পারেচারও বাড়ছে। তো হাতে একটা স্টিক নিয়ে, আই রিপিটেড, আমি যখন থেকে ওইটা আবার দেখি, হাতে একটা স্টিক নিয়ে দেখাচ্ছে যে এই দেখো এইখানে টেম্পারেচার, এইখানে কার্বন ডাই অক্সাইড, টেম্পারেচার কার্বন ডাই অক্সাইড আস্তে আস্তে উঠছে। উঠতে উঠতে স্টিকটা প্রথমে হাত দিয়ে দেখাচ্ছিল আঙুল দিয়ে, তারপরে স্টিক নিল, তারপর দেখলো স্টিক দিয়ে হচ্ছে না, একটা সিঁড়ি নিয়ে এলো, সিঁড়ি নিয়ে এসে দেখাতে আরম্ভ করলো কোথায় পৌঁছেছে। তো দ্যাটস ওয়্যার উই আর অল। Please see to the inconvenient truth. Look at how the whole thing is happening. We'll come to the stories. আমরা আরো আড্ডা মারবো, একটু সময় আছে আমাদের।